July 15th Blue Springs City Council meeting. We're going to have an invocation by Tom Worstell as a Connections Minister at Blue Springs Christian Church, and then I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance if you'll stand with me.
Let's pray. Father God, we come to you tonight at the beginning of this City Council meeting. We acknowledge your sovereignty over the city and the businesses and people within it. We come to you humbly asking for your wisdom, guidance, peace to reign here in Blue Springs. Your word tells us to pray for the peace and prosperity of the city to which we are called. So Lord, we do that tonight. We pray for your peace to reign in Blue Springs. We pray for crime and evil to leave our city and ask for your protection on those who serve as first responders to acts of violence and crime and injury. We also pray for the prosperity of the city and its inhabitants. We pray that we've experienced growth in numbers and economic development and opportunities to learn and caring for those who have less. As you have blessed us, Lord, may we seek to bless others. Thank you tonight especially for these your servants, our mayor, city manager, city staff, and other council members, and those who work to make this place we call home a wonderful city. We give thanks for the sacrifices they've made for Blue Springs and for the services they provide to us all. And we pray that they would know happiness and fulfillment within their homes and in this community. And Lord, we pray specifically for tonight's agenda. Give the council members wisdom and guidance as they deliberate on items before them, as well as a desire to determine what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around this great city of Blue Springs. We pray that they work together in harmony, even when there's honest disagreement. And we pray that they would act in love for the common good, recognizing your image in everyone. Bless them, Lord, in this meeting tonight. Bless their homes and relationships. Bless our businesses and schools. And may Blue Springs be a city that honors you and reflects your goodness. We pray all these things in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you, Tom, and we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is a confirmation of a quorum.
Councilmember Kaler,
Present.
Tholen,
Present.
Fowler,
Present.
Erickson,
Present.
Edmondson,
Here.
Culpepper,
Present.
Mayor Levasseur.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next item is a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kaler,
Aye.
Tholen,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Culpepper,
Aye.
Mayor Levasseur.
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Next item is a public hearing for Blue Springs Business and Technology Park. I don't know if there will be several people speaking on this. I guess we'll try to swear them in all at once. If you will be speaking or at all, either for or opposed to this, if you could please stand, we'll swear you in all at once, and then you'll just have to give your name and address when you come up to speak.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mayor, the city has one exhibit to enter into the record, City Council Information Form dated July 9th, 2024, with the following attachments: staff report with attachments, application with attachments, affidavit of publication of the Examiner on June 22nd, 2024, 185-foot notification map, names, addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site, copy of letter sent to said property owners, Title IV Land Use Section Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference, bill approving the rezoning, and bill approving the general development plan. This is all we have to enter for the record.
Mr. Mallon, staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Mike Mallon, 903 West Main Street, on behalf of the city, and I have been sworn. Tonight's request is for a approval of a rezoning and a general development plan for approximately 47 acres of property located west of Tyre Road and east of Northeast 20th Street and north of Northeast Jefferson Street for the Blue Springs Business and Technology Park development, which is also known as the Blue Springs Industrial Development. The property is highlighted here by the black and white hatched line. The existing Forcia development is immediately to the west, not pictured here because of an older aerial. The Blue Springs Logistics that has the PepsiCo tenant is immediately to the east. Camping World is to the southeast, and Interstate 70 directly to the south, and the Kohl's Distribution Center directly to the north. The surrounding property, the property is currently zoned agricultural under the former county zoning designation. The surrounding properties are light industrial to the northeast or northwest and to the east. This is an incorrect map. That ADPO designation should not be on there. They are all zoned light industrial. Across the I-70, there is some service office, light industrial, and general business zone property. Oh, come on, do that. The proposed Blue Springs Business and Technology Park consists of an 8-lot industrial park, proposed 8-lot industrial park, and a subdivision with 8 industrial buildings ranging in size from approximately 40,000 square feet to approximately 100,000 square feet, for a total of approximately 612,000 square feet of industrial buildings that can accommodate a mix of land uses. The proposed rezoning from county agricultural is to light industrial, which would allow a variety of different land uses as specified under the Unified Development Code, which may include manufacturing, warehousing, wholesale, and distribution land uses. Due to the location and size of the development, the applicant is requesting to not include the property in the Adamsbury Parkway overlay zoning, which has some standards that would make it difficult for industrial development, such as a minimum of 40% open space requirements, and some other similar things that make the property difficult to develop as a industrial park. The Forcia development to the west and the Blue Springs Logistics development to the east and Coles to the north are all light industrial and not included in the Adamsbury Parkway overlay. Since a rezoning is requested, a general development plan is being requested concurrently. Again, the general development plan includes 8 buildings on a proposed 8 lots with associated parking and detention and landscaping. The proposed general development plan shown here is the conceptual drawing, conceptual plan that will set the framework for development for the future build out of the site. Each building or groups of buildings, depending on the phasing, will be required to come back through the process to do a site plan design review and a final plat for each of those buildings prior to a building permit being issued. And depending upon the developer's phasing, again, they could come in as 8 different plats or variation thereof and plat 2 buildings at the same time or something along those lines. The site plan design review is reviewed by the Planning Commission and takes a further dive into the building architecture, architectural materials, final landscape plan, site lighting. And so a lot of the elements of how this will develop will be finalized there, but the general development plan sets the development framework for the overall development of the property. The proposed development has 2 access points off of Jefferson, one on the far east side, utilizing 27th Street. 27th Street, Northeast 27th Street, excuse me, was constructed by the city to provide a future connection up to the properties to the north and to provide access to the Blue Springs Logistics PepsiCo building, and then also to provide access to the development of this property in the future. So there will be 2 access points off of 27th Street, a access off of Jefferson in the middle of the property, and then over here to the east, it's a little bit easier to see over here, there is an existing access which serves Forcia, and at the time of that development, there was an access easement granted in this little triangle portion here, and this development will be utilizing that access point. So in order to minimize the number of access cuts onto Jefferson, this development is only proposing 1 additional access. The other 2, all of the other accesses will come off existing streets or existing access points onto Jefferson. The city does own this portion of the property here. This long linear portion where the drive is shown, that was part of the Forcia development. And at the time, the city retained ownership of that as a tract of land for the potential future development of a street that may connect up on that portion and then connect around the property. That was prior to the Blue Springs Logistics project and the city's construction of Northeast 27th Street. As such, the city does not feel that we have a need for that property any longer, and will work with the developer to transfer that property to them so that they can utilize it and incorporate that into their development, making it better use of the land than a empty landscape tract that the city has to maintain over time, and actually putting that property to use as part of this project that can then help bring in some revenue to the city in tax dollars. This is the proposed landscape plan. Again, it is at a conceptual nature right now. Final landscape plan totals will not be known until each of these buildings and phases go through the specific site plan design review process. However, wanted to show that particular attention is being paid to the perimeter of the property and the buffering along Jefferson to screen the parking, along the buffer shared with Forcia, and also Coles to the north, and significant buffering along 27th Street to help buffer the parking lots along the external boundaries of the property. Parking for the property appears that it will be able to be met. Final parking calculations will be based upon the actual building square footage and the use of that building, whether it's warehouse or manufacturing. But there are 870 parking spaces being provided, which should, based upon the rough calculation used for an industrial building, provides more than enough parking for the site. But final parking numbers would be available as the later site plan design reviews come through based upon the actual footprint of that building. The proposed architecture includes a mix of predominantly tilt-up concrete panels and metal awnings with a variation in color and both in vertical and horizontal alignments to help break up the massing of those buildings. These are the proposed architectural drawings, the color scheme and dock door areas and end caps of the building. The front ends of the building will have storefront windows and storefront awnings. The back of the buildings is predominantly dedicated to semi-truck and trailer parking, and the sides of the building reflect the same use of the quality materials to create a well-designed final appearance. Again, final landscape or final building elevations, specific building materials and color palette would be determined through the site plan design review process. These are the remainder of the building elevations. A little bit of history. Property was annexed back in 2022 and retained its county agricultural zoning at that time, as is often the case with our annexed properties. They retain their county zoning until such time that they are proposed for development and are affirmatively rezoned into a city zoning category, hence the request to rezone the property and the request for the general development plan. Staff reviewed the general development plan based upon the criteria in the code for each of the applications and finds that for the rezoning, that the application is in accordance with the comprehensive plan, which the comprehensive plan designation is light industrial. So the proposed light industrial zoning is in accordance with that comprehensive plan. That the rezoning from county agricultural to light industrial is appropriate, complies with the comp plan, and is compatible with the surrounding land uses that are also industrial. Subject property is one of the largest remaining undeveloped properties with I-70 frontage and with surrounding industrial buildings, making it an ideal location for another industrial park. Approval of the rezoning and general development plan will likely attract additional industrial users to the corridor that is already benefiting from industrial zoning. The city has the ability to provide services and facilities to serve the development in terms of water, sewer, and other infrastructure. There is a sanitary sewer line, existing sanitary sewer line that runs kind of from the middle of the property to the northeast corner that will be relocated. And the timing of that relocation and the extent of that relocation will also be determined as the building phasing goes forward. Because and the developer can explain this a little bit more, I believe their first intent is to develop the buildings along Jefferson and relocate the sewer line at that time to an extent that is necessary to serve those, but also leaving flexibility in terms of what can be developed in the later half of the general development plan. So this general development plan would approve 8 buildings. If there is a change and they are able to secure a larger user, such as a 200,000 square foot building instead of 4 100,000 square foot buildings, they would need to come back and amend that plan. And depending on whether that is approved or not, potentially the realignment of that sewer line may move. And so they're proposing to do that in stages, as with the proposed sidewalk along Northeast 27th Street. As that property currently dead ends up here at the property line to the north, the building of the sidewalk would be done in phases adjacent to the building that gets developed, so that it can respond to any flexibility that's needed to attract the best users for the development. So staff finds that the rezoning is appropriate and meets the criteria of code, and therefore recommends approval of the rezoning to light industrial. The general development plan is would be consistent with that light industrial zoning, and is conditioned upon approval of said zoning. The general development plan is in compliance with all applicable use, development, and design standards regulations set forth in the UDC. There are no alternative design standards being requested, so the proposed development complies with the city code, the Unified Development Code, in all aspects. Again, there are adequate facilities and services planned or exist to serve the property. The general development plan is sensitive to existing land uses and is compatible with the existing adjacent land uses. And the general development plan will provide for orderly physical growth of the city and promote business development of quality business parks. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff from the council? Councilmember Fowler.
Yep. I guess, I think it's Adobe page 324 is what I was on, maybe. Yeah, down there at the bottom. If you could zoom in on that building 8 there. Yeah. And that, there you go. Down just a little bit more. I'm sorry, the opposite direction. There you go. See that 75 feet? I'm assuming that's where big over-the-road trucks would be parking. And that 75 feet, just I think it'd be challenging for some of them to pull in there, back up. If there's other big rigs around, that's probably not enough distance to actually get around that well.
That is something that staff pointed out to the developer, and suggested that they run a semi-truck turning template through the site to make sure that all these turns can work. And I believe that's something that they will do when we get to the site plan design review phase. And so if they need that to be 85 feet and the area of this open space needs to shrink down depending upon the needs of that, while still complying with all of the parking lot and drive aisle setbacks and building setbacks and required open space, then that's something that staff is comfortable with reviewing at the time of site plan design review, as the exact building square footage is known and the dimensions of those parking spaces are known.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Would the developer like to come and make a presentation? If you'll give us your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Brian Ron, 1120 Eagle Ridge Boulevard, Grain Valley, for the applicant. Thank you very much for your consideration of the project. We've been working for a couple years through several different ideas on the site. We're excited about what we have right now. You know, with this site, and as was mentioned, there's not a lot of industrial sites, you know, right along through there. So we've been working to keep as much flexibility in the site as we work with economic development to, you know, see what's out there as far as bringing in good quality employers. The buildings that we're currently showing are a flex tech design that's going to allow us to, you know, work with users anything from 20,000 square feet to 100,000 square feet. And those are typically users that, you know, create good quality jobs. You know, as was mentioned, we are gonna do the front 2 buildings, you know, as far as the initial spec buildings. Those buildings behind there, you know, we have some flexibility moving forward. All right, now if we continue with as it is, we are going to be taking the, you know, suggestions, for example, on the truck, you know, turning radiuses, that type of thing. That particular island that you see, we've already changed that one, but we haven't actually there was no reason to go ahead and submit a whole new plan, at this point, but we have changed that one. But there's a flexibility of users. Some of them are going to have semi-traffic as their primary traffic, and the larger buildings are all set up there at 125 or greater feet. But as you get into the smaller ones, yeah, they would only be appropriate for, box trucks, that type of thing. However, they would have the full travel to be able to go through. But, we are looking at those things, and some of those are gonna be addressed as we go forward. With the architecture, we're very excited that, these are good-looking buildings. They match what's out there right now. They give a lot of flexibility, again, as far as they can be a single user in a building, or they could be 4 users in a building. And other projects that we have that are similar, that's really the way it goes. 20,000, 40,000 square feet, 10, 20 employees, and good jobs. So we're very excited about that. The size of the development and the flexibility that we have gives us, the next couple years, to have a lot of opportunity to bring employers to the city. So, we're excited. We appreciate your consideration of the project, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Brown? Councilmember
I
Cagle.
have a couple. Could you explain to me why on this same Adobe, whatever the number you said right there, why isn't the semi loading and unloading back to back? 2 of the units had like 7, 6 and 7, and I think it's 5 and 4. Why aren't those back to back instead of cutting down every aisle?
So the 2 in the center are back to back, and then the 2 on the outside are not. The reason being this site's falling this direction and this direction at the same time. So the 2 in the center would be that valley. So the trucks would be back to back, and there's a larger space there. The outer 2 buildings, the east and west buildings, the auto parking is on the outside, and then the truck parking on the east for the one and the west for the other, just because the way the grade falls. And that's something that's been a major consideration of this site all the way through. We have large buildings around it, but depending on how you orient a building, there's so much fall across the center of that site and north-south that, unless we're doing something specific, it's very hard to just spec what's gonna work there. So that's just working with the existing grade. Same way with the 2 north buildings. They have vehicle parking on the north side, docks would be on the south. It's just working with the grade that we have.
Okay. The second question is, my shorthand's not very good, so I can't read it. So I'm gonna paraphrase what you said. You said, not anything like this in this area, right along there? What do you mean by?
So, right there you have a manufacturer on the one side, you have a distribution
Okay,
center.
so
to the
what's your
north.
definition then of not right along there? Is that, because you got them just to the east of there?
I might have misspoke when I said that. We do have a project to the east there in Grain Valley.
Okay,
There's, there would be similar uses. That's a slightly different type of development.
I understand. I
but-
just wanted
but yes.
clarification because you made the statement there wasn't anything like that and along that area. And I just wanted you to clarify in case somebody might misunderstand, because there is less than a mile down the road. There's some other units like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe I misspoke.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, relative to phasing, I think you kind of said that the 2 buildings adjacent to the outer road would probably be first phase, and then as demand for the project becomes bigger, then you do the other phases, or?
So yes, the 2 buildings alongside the road there are what we're expecting, and most likely we would start with building, right here in the on the east side. But depending on how economic development progresses, all right, we're going to be looking at that going north. If everything remains the same exactly the way it is right now from market conditions and economic development in the city of Blue Springs, we would move forward with the buildings that are shown. Now, if a user was identified that had more specific needs, and it was a good fit for the development and a good fit for the city of Blue Springs, then at that point in time, we would modify the site to address that user. So we're not locked into anything. Now, there are definitely considerations that have to be taken in, the grade that we just mentioned and things like that, but could we get to 200,000 if we had a user for that? We sure could. All right, right now, we haven't identified that user. Right now, for example, similar types of buildings, we've built some in Lee Summit, we've built some in Grain Valley, and those users are primarily, 20, 40, 60,000 square feet. But, we are on, the look for a larger user that would be a good fit.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the developer? Okay, thank you for your presentation. We'll now go to the audience. Does anyone in the audience like to speak in support of? Anyone like to speak in opposition to? Okay, any other comments from the council before we close the public hearing?
I have one.
Yeah, Councilmember
Question,
Edmondson,
actually.
go ahead.
Mike, and this is probably a little bit preliminary, but you had indicated the number of adequate parking spaces. But with multi-use like this, you have more than just one site for like trash containers and stuff. So is there allowed space in there for that? Or is that something that comes down the road depending on how they set that up?
I think that's something that has not been identified at this conceptual general development plan level. I believe that's something that we can address with the site plan design reviews. Just looking at the site, I believe there's more than enough adequate spaces for those. And
okay.
I also don't know, some users like to have those internal with a compactor and then have a semi come and pull it off. And so not every building requires an external trash service. But that's something that we will definitely look at the site plan design review phase to make sure that the trash enclosures themselves match the buildings so that they're architecturally compatible and located in a non-prominent location so as to not take away from the streetscape appeal.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? We will close the public hearing. Next item is introduction and reading of Blue Springs Business Technology.
I will introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5228, an ordinance rezoning property from AG County Agriculture Jackson County to LI Light Industrial for Blue Springs Business and Technology Park Blue Springs Industrial.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
Second reading of Bill 5228, an ordinance rezoning property from AG County Agriculture Jackson County to LI Light Industrial for Blue Springs Business and Technology Park Blue Springs Industrial.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading, provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Yeah, aye.
Mayor Mayor Livesay.
Aye.
Carried unanimously, given ordinance number 5338.
Next up is introduction reading of the general development plan for Blue Springs Business Technology Park.
I will introduce it.
First reading of Bill 5229, an ordinance approving the Blue Springs Business and Technology Park Blue Springs Industrial General Development Plan.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the general development plan? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no?
Second reading of Bill 5229, an ordinance approving the Blue Springs Business and Technology Park Blue Springs Industrial General Development Plan.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Mayor Livesay.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5339.
Next, we have a public hearing for the Capital Improvements Program. I believe Mr. Mallon.
Mayor, the city has one exhibit to enter into the record. City Council information form dated July 2nd, 2024 with the following attachments. PowerPoint presentation, draft of proposed 2025-2029 capital improvements program. Public notice as published in the Examiner on June 27, 2024. And bill adopting the capital improvements program. This is all we have to enter for the record.
I'm sorry, City Administrator Cates will give our presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, we are presenting the proposed fiscal year 2025 to 2029 capital improvements program. The CIP is being submitted in accordance with the city's charter, sections 5.4E and section 7.4. The CIP is consistent with past CIP budgets and directives provided by the city council. Last year, the CIP document was reorganized and reformatted to improve readability and flow of information. And this year, there's been an emphasis on identifying, including capital equipment and replacement and maintenance needs. The goal with this is to capture a more comprehensive and complete picture of all of the city's different needs. Our previous CIP documents did not adequately quantify the total needs of the city for maintenance and equipment, which hindered our ability to plan effectively for the future. Next year's review will include a full review of older unfunded projects to ensure they are accurate and still relevant for inclusion in the plan. The 5-year total program, including funded and unfunded projects, totals $258.9 million. 39% of this program is funded at $101 million, and 61% of the program is unfunded. Of the funded project total of $101 million, 53.9% is budgeted for maintenance, 42.2% for capital improvements, and 3.9% for equipment. Last year's total CIP was $174.5 million, and this year's CIP total at $258.9 million is an increase of 48% over last year's program, or $84.4 million. The funded projects by year by category are shown on this slide. The largest planned capital improvement over the next 5 years is construction of the Southwest Park that is scheduled for fiscal years 26 and 27 for a total of $29 million. Other significant projects coming in the next 5 years include improvements for AA Highway for $8 million, Highway 7 sidewalk infill for almost $3 million. The funded CIP is $101 million compared to last year's funded CIP of $97 million, an increase of $3.9 million, or 4%. This is mostly due to 2 new projects funded by the park sales tax. This slide shows the program of funded and unfunded costs broken down by the strategic framework goals. Nearly all the unfunded projects are infrastructure projects that total $154 million. This strategic plan framework was adopted in 2015, and it may change or be modified once a new strategic plan has been adopted, perhaps even later this year. The breakdown of the funded projects for fiscal year 24-25 is shown here. Planned expenditures total $21.2 million. $85,000 is for public safety, $5.2 million for parks, $5.9 million for streets, including $2.6 million for the pavement management program and $1.6 million for the first year of the AA highway improvements. $105,000 is included for stormwater maintenance, and water and sewer projects total $9.9 million. Last year's CIP included unfunded projects totaling $77.5 million, and this year's CIP's unfunded projects total almost $158 million. The significant increase in the number of projects on the unfunded list is due to having new staff in key positions and better data to analyze and make recommendations for replacement and maintenance. One example is ST06, which is the pavement management program that has been updated to include the proposed neighborhood street preservation program and the funded and unfunded portions of the annual pavement management program. During the January 29 council work session, staff presented 2 options for treatment cycles for pavement management. The optimal treatment cycle would cost $11.5 million per year, and the minimal treatment cycle would cost $7.3 million per year. The project sheet on page 410 of this agenda packet, or page 48 of the CIP document, has been updated to illustrate how much an additional funding is needed each year to meet the minimal treatment cycle. Excluding the neighborhood preservation program during the next 5 years, an additional $17.4 million is needed to meet the minimum treatment cycle. And we've only shown each year in our plan what was funded and have not had a way to quantify it or illustrate where the funding is falling short to do the minimum pavement management that we need to be completing each year. If the bond election is approved in August, $40 million worth of projects will be moved from this list to the funded list. Those projects include ST06, ST09, ST49, ST55, 58, 61, 66, and CD04. As we finalize the budget this year, other projects will be considered for funding, specifically in the equipment replacement. We all received updated presentations from the fleet maintenance department on snow plows and trucks that need to be replaced. And as we get closer to the end of the year and can see where we're going to end the year, we may make additional recommendations for funding in next year for some of that equipment. The largest remaining unfunded project on this list is $60.3 million for improvements to Sniobar wastewater treatment plant. This project includes improvements required by the EPA that must be completed within the next 6 years. To qualify for low-interest financing from the state of Missouri, the voters will be asked to approve this project in an election in 2025. The changes and additions to this year's CIP include the addition of $113.8 million in unfunded projects, which we just covered, and $11.1 million worth of projects that were added to the last fiscal year in the plan now, which is fiscal year 28-29, and consists mostly of maintenance and equipment replacement projects. $6.5 million worth of projects are moved from the unfunded to the funded list, including Hidden Valley Park improvements, Ward Park improvements. On this slide, they're labeled as Ward Park Trail improvements. That is not correct. It's Ward Park improvements specifically to the restrooms. Pink Hill Park maintenance building improvements and Highway 7 sidewalk infill. Parks Director Justin Stewart will provide more background and details on PR 18 and 81. They are both new projects that will be funded by the park sales tax.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to kind of go through some of the benefits of a couple projects on the list here. Starting off with the turfing of the Hidden Valley Park softball fields. A couple of the benefits that this will provide is from a maintenance standpoint. Currently, the department budgets about $100,000 annually for a contractor to perform infield preparations for league games and tournament games at the ball fields. Turfing these infields would eliminate the need of most of that. Definitely all of it at Hidden Valley, and this expense in the general fund would be decreased by about $70,000 in the operating budget. It would also reduce the amount of supplies and materials needed for chalk lines, infield material, and staff time, which would add to the overall financial savings in the park maintenance operations budget. Turfing the infields would drastically reduce the number of rainouts. Turf infields, you could basically play on them as long as it's not storming at game time. This provides a much more appealing program to residents and participants of our programs or tournaments, as people are more confident in the probability that games will be played as they are scheduled. People get frustrated when you have a lot of rainouts and you have to send new schedules, and people get confused, and it just gets to be a mess sometimes. As a direct result of the limited number of potential rainouts, this would also make the facility much more attractive for tournaments. Tournament directors are much more likely to schedule tournaments at the facility if there is very little chance that they would need to cancel their games. It's been a topic of discussion in the past on how to bring back these large regional tournament activities to Blue Springs, and this turf would put us in a position to compete with other complexes and municipalities around us that have already done this. It kind of gives us the ability to draw some of these tournaments back to Blue Springs. This project would also directly benefit the Exceptionals. If you're not familiar with that, they are a special needs program that has used the fields for years out at Hidden Valley. It's for a league for those with special needs, and the turf would make it much easier for wheelchair-bound individuals to maneuver throughout the infields for their games and their program as well. The project also includes replacing the backstop fences, basically from dugout to dugout, with new backstop netting system. Current fencing is the original fencing at the complex, and it's outlived its life cycle. This net system is commonly used at many of the newer complexes that you see throughout the region and really throughout the United States. The replacement cost of the net itself is minimal when compared to the replacement cost of fencing. The turf itself comes with a 10-year warranty and has a life expectancy of around 15 years, but with proper maintenance, we feel that we could extend the life of the turf past the 15 years, more in the area of 20 years. And also included in this amount is $400,000 for restroom renovations. This would include all the restroom facilities at Hidden Valley Park. It would be a complete gutting of the existing restroom facilities and going back in with new fixtures, new partitions, floorings, lightings, basically a complete renovation of those restroom facilities. It's also the intent to add heating into the restroom facilities for potential use during colder months of the season. A lot of the sports seasons seem to be starting a lot earlier and ending a lot later these days, so this would give us the ability to kind of accommodate those early tournaments or late tournaments, early season sports, those kind of things. And also along with this, it provides for a refresh of the outside of the restroom buildings to freshen them up and remove some weather staining that's on the current buildings if the funding would allow. And then the second project is the Pink Hill Maintenance Building. Renovations of the Pink Hill Park Maintenance Facility. This is a $750,000 project. This facility itself is 40 plus years old. It was once the original public works shop. Our guys have gotten a lot of use out of it, but it's time to give them a refreshed working space out there. This project will provide a complete renovation of the office space, locker rooms, and the break room for our staff. The existing office space is not conducive to any privacy. Staff have to walk through the office of one staff member to get to another office. It does not allow for any confidentiality or, like I said, privacy in the office setting. And this new configuration will allow for separation between offices and private entrances into each office. It would also include a small conference space that could be used for small team meetings with 3 or 4 people, or meetings with contractors or salespeople, other visitors to the facility. The current locker rooms at the existing facility have far exceeded their lifespan, are in dire need of modern fixtures and accommodations, so this would accommodate that. The current maintenance building is also not really a secure facility for the public. The way it sits today, if a visitor comes to the facility, they walk right into the shop area where they can see all the tools and equipment that we have in the shop. This project would identify an entrance to the office area where visitors would not be able to access the rest of the facility without being escorted by a staff member. There's currently no restroom facility other than staff restroom facilities, so if they do have any meetings or visitors out there, there's no restroom facility to be used other than to go through all the other working spaces. This project would provide a restroom that could be utilized by a member of the public without accessing all the employee areas. And the current break room itself is outdated with very low ceilings and mismatching tables and chairs. Break room has not increased in size with the addition of staff over the years. This project would provide a new expanded space that can accommodate future staff growth and provide the park staff with a space for team meetings and trainings when needed. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart, before we get too far, I actually need both of you to swear in because this is a public hearing and I forgot to do that, so.
You some swear the testimony you're about to give them have already given.
I do.
Connor,
Yes, sir.
we're not gonna make him repeat all that.
It's not that we don't trust them, you know,
I
we
can
just
through it again if you want me to.
make sure. Any questions for staff? Do you have anything else, Ms. Gates?
Just the last part that we have, this is in compliance again with 7.6 of the city's charter, relates to the timing and approval of the CIP each year. The public hearing notice was published on Saturday, June 27, 2024, and we are asking the city council to adopt the CIP this evening. But we also know there's a lot of information and changes from previous year's CIPs that you may have questions about. In particular, when we do new projects, they don't often go straight to the funded list. They usually go unfunded and then funded list. And so that's why we spend a little more time talking about those 2 parks projects that are able to be done because the park sales tax still is coming in very well and doing higher than we projected when we planned out the projects in this program. And so that's why we were able to recommend these projects.
Okay, any questions for staff? Councilmember Kaler.
Hidden Valley, that was just for the softball fields, correct?
Correct.
For the artificial turf? So basically nothing for the baseball fields 1, 2, and 3, correct?
Is that correct? Correct. That's correct.
Councilmember Fowler, did you?
No, I don't feel it.
Councilman Erickson.
I probably should know the answer to this, but $3 million for sidewalk infill on Missouri Highway 7?
Yes, that is for the central and south projects. That one is the one that we recently had the public hearing or the open house for at
Right.
City Hall. That's the city's portion of that project is included, and then a south portion.
So we're
No.
paying $3 million for it. Is it our sidewalk to maintain? Will we have to go, state takes care of it, we can't do it, the signs fall down? Whose
We get to help them pay
responsibility?
for it and they maintain it.
Say that again?
We help pay for it, they are maintaining it.
So we'll still be, that's the state's problem, not our problem, so to speak.
We will direct any questions and concerns about maintenance to the state.
Okay. Way to dodge the issue.
Any other questions for staff on the CIP? Okay, then we will go to the audience. Anyone in the audience like to speak in support of, in opposition to? Any other comments before we close the public hearing? We will close the public hearing. Next is introduction and reading of the CIP.
I will introduce it, John.
First reading of Bill 5230, an ordinance adopting the City of Blue Springs Capital Improvements Program for fiscal years 2024-2025 to 2028-2029.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
Second reading of Bill 5230, an ordinance adopting the City of Blue Springs Capital Improvements Program for fiscal years 2024-2025 to 2028-2029.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide a proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Erickson.
Aye.
Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5340.
Next, we have introduction and reading of Hoot Owl Acres final plat.
I'll introduce it.
First reading Bill 5231, an ordinance approving the final plat for Hoot Owl Acres, Blue Springs, Jackson County, Missouri.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
Second reading Bill 5231, an ordinance approving the final plat for Hoot Owl Acres, Blue Springs, Jackson County, Missouri.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5341.
Next, we have a public hearing of a Unified Development Code text amendments for inoperable vehicles.
Mayor, the city has one exhibit to enter into the record, City Council Information Form dated July 9th, 2024, with the following attachments: staff report with attachments, application with attachments, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on June 22nd, 2024, Title IV Land Use Section, Blue Springs City Code of Ordinances by reference, and 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference, and bill amending the Unified Development Code. This is all we have to enter for the record.
We won't forget to swear you in, Mr. Mallon. Go ahead.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Mike Mallon, 903 West Main Street, on behalf of the city, and I have been sworn. This is a public hearing being held at the request of the city for a consideration of an amendment to the Unified Development Code related to the definition of inoperable vehicles. Specifically, the change to the Unified Development Code is under the glossary section, which is 411.040, and is a change to the definition of the term inoperable vehicle. The current, little bit of backstory, background, the current city code does not include provisions that make it a violation to store or park a motor vehicle on private property that does not have current state of Missouri registration, license plates, or tags. At the May 6, 2024 City Council meeting, staff presented information related to other cities' requirements for current license plates, tags on vehicles. At the conclusion of that discussion, council directed staff to bring forward a city code amendment to require vehicles parked on private property to have current state of Missouri license plates and tags. The proposed definition and change specifically is shown here under 411.040, item number 57, inoperable vehicle. The definition would read with the bold and under licensed word added, and it would read: any motor vehicle that is unable to operate or move under its own power. Shall also mean any motor vehicle that is in an abandoned, wrecked, dismantled, scrapped, junked, unlicensed, or partially dismantled condition. A separate city code amendment is also on the agenda this evening to amend section 245.160 under the enumeration of nuisances to add the word unlicensed to that section of the code to make it a nuisance violation as well, to have an unlicensed vehicle on private property. The Development Advisory Commission met on June 24th and recommended approval of the proposed UDC amendment by a vote of 2-1, with some of the issues being raised by the DAC included the potential additional financial burden that the amendment may have on residents who are unable financially to bring their current or their vehicle up to current status or license and to pay for the tags, as well as concerns with the enforcement of this new city code. The Planning Commission met on July 8th and recommended unanimously approval of the proposed UDC text amendment. Staff reviewed the text amendment under section 403.020 of the UDC. The criteria listed there for when a Unified Development Code text amendment is proposed, whether the change is in accordance with the comprehensive plan or any official plans or programs, whether such change is consistent with the purpose of this code, the areas most likely to be affected and the way that they'll be affected, whether the proposed amendment is necessary because of changed or changing social values, new planning concept, or other social or economic conditions, and the recommendations of staff. Staff finds that the proposed UDC amendment meets the criteria above and therefore recommends approval of the UDC text amendment. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff from the council? Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, Your Honor. We're adding one word to both of these paragraphs, right? Unlicensed.
To both sections, yeah. This one is for the Unified Development Code section, and then
Right.
there's also the separate ordinance that is for under the enumeration of nuisance code section.
Right. And the goal, I think it's an honorable goal, and that is to reduce residential blight, because we've seen that, and it would be great to do that. My concerns come in with just throwing one word in there and expecting that to solve all those problems. I think it complicates in some ways, because there are unlicensed vehicles which I think are okay. And I've seen times even at my house when that's occurred. I guess we see people as hobbies rework vehicles and have very fine looking vehicles in their driveway that they may take to car shows. It may or may not be licensed. And I hate to think that they would get caught up in this, but when you just put one word in there, I can see how they would. I think you acknowledge there could be trouble with implementing or how you would enforce this, because if somebody covers their vehicle with a tarp, then you couldn't see whether it's licensed or not, right?
That's correct.
In my situation, this is years ago, I had teenagers, and they went through the growing years of owning cars. First they had to get a car, they had it probably a year before that. Titling, you have to go out and get that, or there's a fine if you don't do it within 30 days. But there's no such requirement at the state level, that it has to be licensed. So I would say that I had a vehicle where my son was improving it throughout the year in hopes of being responsible, owning a vehicle, doing all the things you have to do, like insurance, and having enough money to do all that. That's a good way of educating our youth on being responsible. And I think it was right and appropriate to do that. I think we'd also be implementing this in a situation like that. We pay property taxes on it. We pay property taxes for a driveway, we pay property taxes for the vehicle, and we also pay the old city sticker, city license. But yet, this body would come back and say, well, it's not got a license plate on it, so therefore you're gonna get fined again. I just think that that's, by itself, it's too vague, and I think that there will be selective enforcement of this. I don't see how there's any option but to do that, because there are responsible citizens out there that have unlicensed vehicles in the driveway that are not blighting their neighborhoods, or they should be given a right to have them under certain situations. That's my belief.
Any other questions for staff and council? Councilmember Kaler.
I will respectfully disagree.
Okay.
Number one, if you have a hobby that you're spending the money to update and do a car for a car show, you're not going to leave it outside in the elements to get destroyed if you're taking it to car shows. I would like to know on those vehicles that your sons had, were they operable to get a license at that time? Is that what you were saying?
I think that there were some safety concerns that with improved brakes, things like that we would like to have done before we did get it licensed.
So basically, they were inoperable, and an inoperable.
Well, I don't know that needing brakes is inoperable.
Well, would it pass inspection?
It may have, but
It may not, though.
It may not have.
Okay. An operable vehicle is still unlawful to drive on the streets.
I
And
totally agree.
And if we're not putting tags on these cars, and we're just gonna, I've got pictures that I've got one resident in my district, Councilman Erickson and myself district, that's got 9 cars sitting there with over half of them with either no tags or expired tags. They're not even drivable. And why does the neighborhood there have to put up with something like that just because it might be in favor of a word or not a word that would, according to you, go ahead, I'll let you.
I was gonna say that if you say they're inoperable, then that probably meets the definition, our current definition of inoperable vehicle. But adding the word unlicensed to it just puts it over a
But
body of,
you just stated that there was a possibility that they could be licensed. So these could be licensed, but then they're you know,
You're
23, 22, and a 21 tag. That's, to me, still inoperable because you can't drive those vehicles on the state. That's an inoperable vehicle.
Your Honor, could I ask a
and I
question?
might respectfully disagree real quick. I think there's a whole array of people, whether they have a show car, maybe they might not have a garage to put it in, they may have a cover for it. But I think our current inoperable does cover a lot of inoperable situations. We haven't been able to implement that, I think, as well as staff. You know, I think we have concerns with it, so we're trying to strengthen it. But I don't know if this one word really does it. So go ahead.
Councilman Erickson.
Well, I have a couple, maybe a comment, maybe a question. I know the answer to it, but in your situation, which obviously could apply to others, if you're waiting to have the brakes fixed or whatever, that does not preclude you being able to go out and get a license for the car. You can have a license, you can be changing the oil and still have a current license. I think the object is to try to eliminate as best we possibly can repair shops in the driveways, and in some cases junkyards in the driveways, in some cases maybe beautification of a 1964 Corvette. I think they made them in 64 or 56 or whatever. But there's no reason that a car that needs some work for a teenager, in your example, cannot be licensed properly. I came in here today, unfortunately I couldn't get my camera out safely enough to take the picture of the one that had expired in 2/12 of 2022, I believe. That's semi-unlicensed, but at least it was driving on the road, so I guess we didn't care as much. But I think, I understand where you're coming from. I totally understand, but either that or we just leave it alone and let them do whatever they want.
Your Honor.
Councilmember, well, hold on, let me ask this. Mr. Mound, real quick. Councilmember Fowler asked about the enforceability of the current definition. What has been the difficulty in enforcing things as it currently is written without this change?
We aren't able to. If there's a vehicle parked in a driveway that, for all intents and purposes of a code officer driving by the site to investigate it, and it looks operable in that all four tires are blown up or inflated, all of the windows are intact, the windshield's intact, it's not filled with a bunch of stuff that would preclude somebody from getting in, and it doesn't have any other evidence of being junked or dismantled or being worked on or parts missing, then that would be considered, from a visual standpoint, operable. So the difficulty in enforcing anything related to expired tags is that there is no current ordinance on the books that makes it a violation to park an unlicensed or expired vehicle tag on private property. There is if it's on a city street. If it were to be parked out in the street and be unlicensed, not properly displaying the license plates or have expired tags, that would be a violation that the police department would enforce. But as it's currently written, if it's on private property, the city does not have any ability to enforce that.
So with this change, enforcement would look like if staff could see from the street without going onto private property that the vehicle was not licensed, then they would be able to do what?
We would be able to cite them as we would any other instance where we cite an inoperable vehicle. And it would go through that same violation process. They'd be given a certain amount of time to, they'd be given a violation notice, which is essentially a warning. They'd be given a set amount of time to comply. They'd be then given, if that passes, they'd be given an order to abate, so an additional time. After that time, if it's still not up, they would be issued a ticket, which would lead to a court date down the road, and then go through that process. So there would be no additional enforcement. The way that we envision the enforcement, if this code were to be adopted, is all we're doing is changing the definition of inoperable vehicle, where you would just enforce it the way we would if there was a car missing a wheel, or if all 4 tires were not inflated. We'd give them time to fix it or remedy the situation, and such, we would go back out and reinvestigate, and if we went out within that time frame and there were tags on the car, then we would close that violation.
Councilmember Tholen, what you got?
My thing is titling. Sometimes titling takes quite a bit of time. There's some private sales that happen. If it's an abandoned car that you're purchasing from somebody else, you've got to get an abandonment title. You've got to get it from that state to another state, and our state has to do it. So I just want to know what's the time frame of somebody, if they do get this violation, how long of a time is it referenced anywhere, the time frame of doing that? Because there could be titling issues that could last months.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'll answer that one.
Councilmember Cayley.
It wouldn't be any different than if you had the same issue and you drove that vehicle on the street. You come to court, you tell the judge, this is what's happening, here's my documentation, and go from there. It wouldn't be any different than that.
Mr. Mallon.
If I'm wrong, the chief can tell me.
The typical violation, we had a meeting last week and ran through this with the judge and the prosecutor, and it would not be an overnight thing. So if somebody called in a complaint on an unlicensed or improperly tagged vehicle, they would go through the standard due process that we do for nuisance violations, which is usually about a 30-day to 45-day window to bring it into compliance. Then they get a ticket. Then they get scheduled for a court date, which could be up to 90 days away from that original violation date. And then if the judge grants them an extension, it could be another set of 30 to 60 days. And so it is not an overnight remedy to a violation, as is the case with many of our other property maintenance code violations that don't pose a imminent danger to the public health, safety, and welfare.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yeah, we will probably find out we'll have respectful differences on this, but the, I guess, when we talk about the inoperable vehicle, right up there on the screen, you got it. It first says a motor vehicle unable to operate under its own power, blah, 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 unlicensed. So does that mean that's an and? In other words, if it's able to move under its own power, then we wouldn't be citing it for being unlicensed?
No, we would.
So you can just single down to the one word unlicensed and therefore give it a citation?
Yes.
That's my concern.
Yes. And that is more.
So Blue Springs Ford is private property. They have a lot of unlicensed vehicles out there. Are they going to be cited?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, that'd be good. I think people have the right to sell a vehicle. You know, if I bought a vehicle and I'm going to sell a vehicle, and maybe it takes more than a couple months to sell it.
Yeah.
I think people have the right to do that. Again, if somebody's going to pay taxes on their property and they're going to pay taxes on the vehicle, to me, they ought to have a right to have it there, and not just be singled out because of the word unlicensed. Again, I don't mind the goal of reducing blight. I totally agree with that. I just don't know that this is the right way to do it.
But again, if I'm not mistaken, Blue Springs Ford doesn't even follow under this because it is a business, an automotive business.
I am not 100% versed in that section of the code, but I do believe there are some allowances for car dealerships. I read it last week. There are some allowances for car dealerships to have unlicensed or.
Because I know Blue Springs Ford's been here since 1977.
Yeah, there may be differences for cars that don't need a license for commercial purposes. The section in the UDC is mainly driven for inoperable vehicles, and that's why this public hearing is in the UDC. There aren't many instances in the Unified Development Code where that definition gets used. It's primarily for junkyards, salvage yards, scrap yards, things of that nature. The second ordinance that is not part of the public hearing is where it gets the definition of an enumeration of nuisances. So, well, I would defer maybe to the city attorney and to whether state law requirements for motor vehicle dealers would supersede our code requirements.
I could tell our city attorney's researching, but I'll give him some time here. So, Councilman Erickson, what do you think?
I guess I'll just say it this way. It seems like we're getting a little bit beyond into ridiculous. The intent of all our ordinances can be challenged. I think we could go through several of them and spend a couple hours and find some words that may be contradictory. The intent, obviously, is to not harm the public. The intent is to help the public, in my opinion. I can offer a silly one. I'm going to do it. I'll probably be laughed at. But is there a reason that I cannot grow my grass to 2 feet, cut it, put it on my truck, and haul it out to my daughter's farm for a goat feed? I mean, that's ridiculous. But I think getting to this point, we're going to go around the community and try to harass people and this, that, and the other because of in my opinion, it's the intent. It's not the illegal, Your Honor, Judge thing.
Your Honor.
Let me see if the city attorney has anything first.
I'm not gonna be prepared to issue any opinion
Sure.
on to the extent the state law would supersede or whatever, supersede or preempt.
I think I was just one point that even residential citizens ought to be able to sell a vehicle on their. Right.
Councilmember Caleb.
Isn't it true, city attorney, that there's several other cities that have this ordinance? Gladstone for one, Independence for another, that has this ordinance to take care of the blight. It wasn't to pick at a car dealership or anything like that. It was basically in the residence where you have people in residence using it as an auto mechanic shop that has vehicles stacked on vehicles, and you have also residents, and which both of these are in ours, and you in District 2 have 2 of them that I know of that are similar to this way. But there is number of vehicles that sit there in a prominent neighborhood that, you know, is sitting there with the expired license tags, and they're just sitting there and you can't do nothing. And I just think it's a blight deal, and I don't see any reason why we can't follow the other cities.
So, to that point, I've not reviewed all the other cities, but I bet you their language is slightly different than ours, and all we're doing to ours is adding the word unlicensed and saying, well, that's the way they do it. I think this could be elaborated on and find some certain conditions where it may be appropriate. I just think it's too weak by itself.
Councilmember Culpepper.
Yeah, I agree. I understand the intent, but it appears to me that if there are cars stacked in a driveway and people are working on them, they're not licensed, they should be addressed whether they're licensed or not. I just feel like that would be a complete nightmare to try to enforce. I just don't like ordinances that we can't enforce, and I agree, maybe we need to look at how we're wording this, and if there's another way to approach the problem of the inoperable vehicles.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Erickson.
can we, or is it possible to table this public hearing and have some words changed? I don't know the process. We have not done that, I don't think, in my time.
I've opened the public hearing. Is that possible to table at this point?
Or
do
to
we
keep
have to
it open
close
and
it or keep
bring it
open?
back? If
Staff.
so, I'd move to do that if we can.
I don't know if that's you or him. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, you could continue and reopen the public hearing for
Okay.
additional evidence.
So we just move to continue. We don't need to close it to do that?
Well, I would move to continue for no longer than 2 council meetings.
Got a motion to continue the public hearing.
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion?
Just
City
for the-
Administrator Cates has got some comments.
Yeah, I wanted to see if you could give us some specific direction as to what you would like to see to come back within those next 2 meetings, so we can make sure we're researching and preparing in the proper way.
Mr. Mallon, I hear a lot of discussion about what other cities might do. Have you done some research or might be able to provide us with some of that information if we table this and can look at this a little more closely?
Yes, absolutely. I would, if possible, if we were to table it to a meeting specific, we would not need to renotice tonight's public hearing on this section. So,
How much
If-
time would staff need to prepare that? August 5th? I don't know what's on that agenda. Would that be too soon?
trying to, no, that wouldn't be too soon.
It's 3 weeks.
Yeah, because we have
I
the
see some
5th
nods.
Monday.
Staff seems comfortable with that.
Could I change my
Do I need
motion
him
to
to
August
amend it?
5th?
Second.
I'm hearing that's a friendly amendment to move it to August 5th. Discussion, Councilmember Kaler.
I did specifically ask the city attorney, because he's involved with Gladstone, with the Gladstone ordinance, and also look into the other ordinances. This is what came back with, and that's, I just want that on the record. Everybody know that I did ask, and it's just not just out of the blue, it's because there's other cities already doing it. And I think we need, in Blue Springs, to take care of issues at hand. But I'll
Mayor,
I'll
can I
go
comment?
along with, I'll go along with continuing it, if it'll satisfy Councilman Fowler.
I'm not exactly sure of the language for unlicensed, but I think there could be some qualification language that triggers that and makes it more specific to that situation that we're trying to manage.
Ms. Cates.
Yeah, we did receive the other cities' information that Councilmember Kaler provided us, and one additional step we will just check with them is to see if they have any challenges or issues in enforcing it.
Councilmember Edmondson.
According, a little bit of different viewpoint, I kind of agree with Ron on some of it, because you get into some of the construction phases of working on vehicles, and that takes time. And I've been guilty of doing that, and under this ordinance, I guess you would say that I broke our ordinance and did it, but we are a reactionary bunch, so until somebody points it out and says, hey, you broke this ordinance. But I've built cars, I've helped other people build cars that start out at something that would be considered scrap or dismantled, and you end up with a nice vehicle that technically may not be a show car for what people define show cars, but intent and purpose of putting something back on the road that satisfies somebody's need for driving that vehicle, like whether it's nostalgia or whatever. So I'd be really interested in how you're gonna word this to not penalize those people in the community that do that for a hobby.
Just a clarifying question for staff. Do we need to do separate motions for items 11 and 12, or can we continue all three of the public hearing and both in one motion? And if so, do I need to have Councilmember Erickson amend his motion?
I'm amenable to amending it to satisfy the staff's request or the recommendation.
Or do we need to do all three individually?
I would suggest we do all three individually,
Okay.
because this is a public hearing related specifically to the Unified Development Code.
Okay.
The other ordinance is related to a different section of the code where a public hearing is not needed.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
That's good information. Any other discussion on the motion for the public hearing to August 5th? Councilmember Fowler, do you have something else?
No,
Okay.
I'm good with that. Yep.
Nobody on this side? All right, is this just a roll call, or is it, okay,
Roll call it.
let's roll call this.
Okay, we have a motion to continue this public hearing to the August 5th meeting, and I have Councilmember Culpepper,
Aye.
Kaler,
Okay.
Tholen,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Mayor Levasseur.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we still have to do introduction and reading of item number 11,
Did you want to continue that as well?
or I just need a motion to continue, I guess.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Can I do this with voice vote? Sure. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Then I need a motion to continue item 12.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Next item on the agenda is item number 13, code amendment for Colburn Road speed limit.
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5234, an ordinance amending Section 320.050 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Blue Springs, Missouri, to amend speed limits on Colburn Road to 35 miles per hour.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion?
I just wanted to highlight that, talking to Administrator Cates, this was something, I guess, recommended by the city of Lake Lotto to us when we were having discussions about lots of property down south. Is that correct?
That's correct. As part of the lawsuit settlement, we had to agree on the boundaries for police service and maintenance in that area, and as part of our discussions with them, we agreed to put up new speed limit signs and reduce the speed limit so it'd be consistent throughout that area, from 45 miles per hour down to 35 miles per hour.
Yes.
Councilman Erickson.
I think I heard somebody say we agreed to do this, so then is it perfunctory to agree to do this?
The way we do any changes to no parking or speed limits within the city is we post it for 90 days and then come back and have the council formalize it if there are no questions or concerns about the change.
Okay, I was asked yesterday or the day before why we would do this, and I said, I don't know. So I think you answered that. I also did, in my head, I went through driving it, and to me, it can go 45 or 35 or whatever, so I guess I would have to yield my vote to the recommendation of the police, which I think, I hear you say the police enforcement said that should be that way. I see a head going up and down, Chief.
So,
Councilmember Kalen.
reason being that because Lake Lotawana wanted it?
Well, that's how it came up during those discussions, but what we've seen over the time since development has continued and Carriage Oaks and Highland Ranch annexed into the city of Blue Springs, we have a lot more residential housing through there. And also as you go east from 7 Highway on to Colburn Road, it goes around from 2 lanes to 1 lane. So keeping it consistent through there made sense to us as well.
But it's always been those, how even before they became part of the annex into the city of Blue Springs, those houses were already there with a speed limit of 45.
You're
Right.
correct on the south
Okay.
side, but there's been a lot more development within the city limits of Blue Springs on the north
Okay.
side of Colburn.
Okay.
And that was a county road
Mm-hmm.
previous
Yes,
to us
it was.
annexing it? Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
No.
Second reading of Bill 5234, an ordinance amending Section 320.050 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Blue Springs, Missouri, to amend speed limits on Colburn Road to 35 miles per hour.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Kaler.
No.
Councilmember Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Mayor Levacy.
Aye.
Motion carries and given ordinance number 5342.
Next is item 14 is a resolution for amending the city's purchasing policy. I just need one reading. Oh, I still need a motion to approve, I guess.
Move to
I
approve
move to
resolution. Yeah.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Next item, introduction and reading of bill number 5235, amending the Code of Ordinances for the Contract Authority.
I will introduce that.
First reading of Bill 5235, an ordinance amending Chapter 115, Officers and Employees of the Code of Ordinances, City of Blue Springs, Missouri, relating to authority to enter into contracts.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
Second reading of Bill 5235, an ordinance amending Chapter 115, Officers and Employees of the Code of Ordinances, City of Blue Springs, Missouri, relating to authority to enter into contracts.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Mayor Levacy.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5343.
Next is item 16, introduction and reading of a contract with BSSD for police officers.
I will introduce that.
First reading of Bill 5236, an ordinance approving a contract between the City of Blue Springs and the Blue Springs R4 School District, BSSD, for police officers at BSSD high schools and dispatching services for the 2024-2025 school year.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
Second reading of Bill 5236, an ordinance approving a contract between the City of Blue Springs and the Blue Springs R4 School District, BSSD, for police officers at the BSSD high schools and dispatching services for the 2024-2025 school year.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide a proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Councilmember Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Culpepper,
Aye.
Kaler,
Aye.
Tholen,
Aye.
Mayor Levesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5344.
Next is introduction and reading of Adams Dairy surplus property and
I will
RFP.
introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5237, an ordinance declaring certain parcels of city-owned real property as surplus and authorizing the solicitation of offers for disposition thereof.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, Your Honor. In this request for proposal, I did see where we put a minimum price on the land. And myself, I mean, with the right proposal, there may be incentives that we want to use, and there may not, it may be, we've done property for $1 before, is what I'm trying to say. Are we bound by this? I mean, I think you're just one, and matter of fact, I think that number with inflation, I think that number needs to go up myself, so, as a minimum.
Well, when we started this process, we didn't have a dollar amount, and so we did an appraisal on this property, and that's what we have been using in the last couple of go-rounds for that. So that's how this one was built as well. I mean, it can be changed, and it could be modified based on proposals that are received.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Second reading.
Second reading of Bill 5237, an ordinance declaring certain parcels of city-owned real property as surplus and authorizing the solicitation of offers for disposition thereof.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Edmondson,
Aye.
Culpepper,
Aye.
Kaler,
Aye.
Tholen,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Mayor Levesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5345.
Next is item 18, introduction and reading of Bill 5238, a subordinate bond approval for Adams Dairy TIF.
I will introduce that, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5238, an ordinance approving the first supplement to trust indenture between the City of Blue Springs, Missouri and UMB Bank N.A. as trustee related to the subordinate special obligation tax increment and special district bonds Adams Farm Project, Series 2015B, and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no. I'm sorry, did I miss your honor? We'll get you on second.
Second reading of Bill 5238, an ordinance approving the first supplement to trust indenture between the City of Blue Springs, Missouri and UMB Bank N.A. as trustee related to subordinate special obligation tax increment and special district bonds Adams Farm Project, Series 2015B, and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading and provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, Your Honor. I guess I did have one question for staff. There's quite a history on these bonds about how many times they've moved. And I guess I think that we're already beyond that phase, but it cannot affect our credit one way or the other, right?
That's correct. We are just amending the documents to allow this transfer of the bonds, but it has no impact on the repayment or the city's credit rating.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Culpepper,
Aye.
Kaler,
Aye.
Tholen,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Mayor Levesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously given ordinance number 5346.
Next, we have a presentation from Retail Strategies. Mr. Mount, looks like you're gonna start us off.
Yes, I am. Thank you. The city has contracted with Retail Strategies since 2022 to provide for research, real estate analysis, and retail recruitment in order to help identify needed services in retail sectors in the city, and also aid in the recruiting appropriate retailers to Blue Springs. As part of that contract, Retail Strategies has agreed to a one-site visit per year to update the city on their efforts over the past year and the work plan for the next year. At this point, I'd like to introduce Cam South with Retail Strategies, and they have a presentation.
Mr. South, go ahead.
Good afternoon, council. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Okay, good. Thank you for inviting me out today for this presentation. So maybe a little small on the screen, but I'll try to make do and read off as much as I can here without glazing your eyes over here. So essentially, for you guys who don't know, Retail Strategies, we're a national retail recruitment firm that works with municipalities across the country. We do have other arms of services through our service lines. But with our partnership at Blue Springs, our focus is on national retail recruitment to the community. With that, we start with a data process where we come through using some of our data providers and present a pretty in-depth data report to the city, just analyzing your community, your trade area, your core consumer, just kind of highlighting everything that we need to present not only to you guys, but as well to retailers. You can jump to the next slide there. So my name's Cam Sal, Senior Portfolio Director, Retail Strategies. I cover the Midwest territories, including state of Missouri. Stephen Dindy here, he is a Retail Development Associate. He's the one that runs the groundwork for your partnership. So he's on the phone with the retailers, brokers, developers, landlords, and so on. All right, so just kind of briefly recap what I said earlier. Through the discovery phase, that's usually the first 90 days of the partnership. That's when we're digging into your community, learning about who you are by the number. That's through peer analysis, that's through custom trade area data, that's through mobile insights. After that, we present that data. We go to a formal market visit. That's when we come out, take a catalog of your property. We call it a BOG, means boots on the ground. So when we come and tour the market, get an understanding of the community and the trade area, looking at traffic patterns, your existing retail in place. We're looking at opportunities, leasing, ground leases, sales opportunities, and we're also looking at different properties that we could possibly bring together to make a site suitable for a retailer. We put all that information together around the day 90 to 100 mark. We present that to a recruitment plan. And what the recruitment plan goes over is everything from day one, from the data, going over your peer analysis, going over your community as a whole, breaking it down from a standpoint that the national retailers are looking at your community. We deliver that to the city. It's about 88 pages or so. It's pretty in-depth. But it breaks down, it's almost like a strategic plan. This is the plan that we're going to follow going forward. But it is always up for change when things change around the community. So we continuously look for different methods and different recruitment options for your community. After that, we're in full-blown recruiting there. That's when we hit the ground running. We've sourced about 132 different retailers. We're engaged with about 34 or so retailers right now actively, so we want to continue that outreach on our efforts to get retailers to the community. So just to break it down a little bit, the big thing that is with research, that's when it comes to retail, it always starts from a numeric standpoint. You know, these retailers want to understand that trade area. They want to know how many people in a 3, 5, 10 mile drive time or 5, 10, 15 minute radius. They want to know, you know, what your mosaic or your tapestry segmentation is. That's when every community is pretty much stereotyped. They want to know what type of person's in your community. You know, this is blue collar community, this is white collar community. What type of brands they shop at, what type of, you know, shopping habits. Do they cross shop at different stores to, you know, bolster their buying power? So. And we want to go over, you know, the retail gap. That's kind of the bread and butter to the data. What are the leakages? What are the focus categories we need to look at? And those type of brands we need to recruit to the community. One way we do that is through mobile data collection. If you've read George Orwell, 1984, it's kind of a big brother method here, but we don't know where you live. We kind of have a geo ping, a geo kind of ping that understands where you're coming from through multiple ways and methods. But you have your cell phone and you walk in the store and they start sending you ads, or you start asking you for share your location. That's 9 times out of 10 you walk through a geofence, so they're pinging your phone, understanding where you're going and where you're shopping. And we don't know who you are. That's information that our data, our demographers, we buy the information from them to kind of understand that. Your custom trade area, you know, as you're a community, if you go on Google and type in Blue Springs, you're gonna see a little red line that outlines your community. 9 times out of 10, we're not looking at that. Retailers not looking at that. They want to know, where does your community come from? Where are people shopping in Blue Springs? Where are they coming from? How far out do they travel? What are their shopping tendencies? How long do their dwell time in a certain retail? And we build different layers on top of that, and we create a custom trade area. And this is 7% of your core consumer in your market. So we've identified your data. We've broken it down. We're understanding what the dynamic is in the community. We're understanding what the gap is. And we identify the categories that are missing, you know, $1 million gap, a $10 million gap. So we've identified 4 different categories here, which is grocery, general merchandise, clothing, and food and beverage. As of we here today, the real estate analysis is a huge part of what we do, because if we don't have any sites to present to a retailer, it's kind of pointless to be doing our work here. So we catalog a property, we use multiple tools for our work. If you want to slide to the next slide, we'll give an example here. So I left the names off of these sites just for a redacted version for public use, but as you can see, we were cataloging many properties throughout the community to understand, you know, this is a great site for this retailer. This is a site that we could pencil together for, you know, a travel center or something that's contiguous to that type of site. So this list here is pretty, I mean, this page is pretty in depth here, but we'll go through some of the categories that we're going after. Of course, grocery store, full service restaurants, hobby and craft stores, home and garden, sporting goods. There's a few other brands or categories, retail types that are not on there, but you know, our big picture is to establish, you know, your unique market position, being a DMA market to Kansas City, and having that bolstered kind of compression of houses and residential growth in this part of Kansas City. So we were looking to attract new grocery, new soft goods. Think about new junior anchor shopping centers that you see anchored with a Hobby Lobby or TJ Maxx or Marshalls or something like that. You know, we're working with developers to understand, is this is a market that can, one, economically grow in today's financial times with interest rates, but as well can this community support a new shopping center? Can it support, you know, 100, 200,000 square feet of GLA for a community? We represent you guys in many trade shows. ICSC Las Vegas is kind of the Super Bowl of trade shows that we attend. You know, it's over 8,000 retailers at this show, where we're constantly trying to get meetings with and sitting down with them, kind of more intimate face-to-face time with them to talk about your community, highlighting you guys on a national level and getting that feedback and delivering it to you. You know, again, back to the category variables here that we have identified. These are some of the groups that we're talking to at these shows on a day-to-day basis. Constant email correspondence, phone calls with the brokers, landlords to make a play. So a lot of redacted on here. I don't know, I'm not going to share names, but you can kind of decipher a little bit for yourself here as to some of the current attractions. This isn't all, this is just a snippet. Didn't want to fill the list too much to go through tonight, but we got interest from National Coffee Operator, chicken users, a hobby retailer, hobby retailer. We got interest, but not right now, from a national grocery. We're struggling with grocery on this at the moment right now. It's kind of tough. A lot with grocery is compression for markets for them to grow in. But, you know, highlighting residential growth in the community, highlighting where the community is growing and where sections and traffic patterns are is kind of a better plan for us. I was speaking earlier about how grocery users are tending to want to anchor projects now in order to get that cross traffic or that co-tenancy shopping patterns that they need. Another coffee user we're working with, a pet supply retailer that's franchised, that's looking to be here in the market. Sports bar and grill, and another burger QSR, but many more we're in contacts with, but most current traction and feedback we're getting are off these brands here. So retailer timeline, part of our contract, the reason we always ask for a 3-year contract is that it takes 18 to 36 months to transact a deal. on average. Now, some deals go quicker than that. Usually your smaller brands can get in. Think about your coffee users, your small fast food users can get in quickly. And a lot of that is also determined too by the franchisee, but there's a lot of steps to go through in order to get new store locations going. Everything from Wall Street to developers to the real estate committee to them coming and touring the market. But we update and kind of report back to you guys to understand like where they are in the process. If it's a yay or nay, they fell out somewhere on this. It could be a performer that they're struggling with where they need a CID, a TIF, in order to make a deal done. So we always want to get the information to you guys so you can understand like, and this is a hold up, but this is not a hold up. But 18 to 36 months is usually the dwell time when it comes to opening a new business. So part of our secret sauce is our relationships. We have relationships with most national brands. What we are doing now is starting to develop some of those regional brands that are more focused on the Kansas City, the St. Louis, or the state of Missouri brands that aren't a national player, but more of a regional, local play. We're understanding them. We want to get them on a phone call, build relationships, visit them, have them come to their office and talk about deal making. You know, we're constantly on the phone with developers. Just had 3 developers that are interested in the market over the past couple of weeks that we're trying to kind of give them a high-level 30,000-foot overview of the community. You know, we're working constantly with landowners to see if a site is available for sale, for lease, you know, working out the dynamics of that. They may have a broker or not have a broker helping them list a property. So we were trying to play the matchmaker between property and the retailer, as well as deliver on the product of our long-standing relationship with national retailers. I'm sorry. For me, I can take some questions. I can field off.
Any questions for Mr. South? Councilmember Culpepper.
Oh, I have a whole bunch of questions.
Go for it.
I guess what it boils down to, it seems like we attract the same type of business over and over and over again. We have enough drive-through restaurants. I mean, it's the same. So what is that secret sauce you talked about to getting larger, more, I don't want to say big box, it's not what we're looking for particularly, but
New to market.
larger retailers and such that we can offer a broader selection
Yes.
for our residents?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's one thing that jumps off, you know, when we tour markets, especially when we're touring here, you see a lot of car washes, you see a lot of fast food restaurants, a lot of the same category fast food restaurants. So it's an overabundance, but you know, retail, let me tell you this, retail is going to come to the market regardless we're here or not. They're going to make that decision on themselves to be in the market. Now, we can recruit for whatever, you know, category we need to, but food and services, food and beverage, we're not really looking for the low-hanging fruit of the quick service drive-through restaurants. We're looking for the bigger fast casual or the casual sit-down style restaurants, you know, the 180 part, 10,000 square foot building styles. Think about your Texas Roadhouse, your Longhorns. And we're looking to recruit those at the moment, not necessarily the quick service restaurants. But again, when it comes to the relationships, they reach out to us all the time, like, oh, we want to be in Blue Springs. Well, we're not going to turn them down. You know, of course, you know, at the end of the day, we always continue to think about sales tax collection. We also have to balance that fine line of, you know, what's healthy for community, what's not healthy, and try to find that balance.
I get tired of having to go to Kansas to get a new shirt. So, you know, and I mean, I'm not alone. I hear this a lot. We need a bigger, more diverse retail basis.
You do, and there's a couple factors that matter to that. One is the type of community that you are. You know, your tapestry, your mosaic. If you were to put a mirror in front of every person in this community, how would that look like to a retailer that doesn't know anything about your community? They only look at it from a data standpoint. That's why it's important for them to come and tour your market to understand, you know, the type of jobs, your type of consumer, which we always stress them to come tour, to get here, to understand that. You know, retailers at the end of the day, they look for what makes them money. They don't, whatever makes them money is what they're going to try to do. Now, we're not here to be the shield of that for the community, but we're here to help guide that type of retailer coming or not coming to your community. So, but it boils down, like, for example, we've got a lot of feedback from grocery stores, you know, and the reason why they don't want to, not necessarily they don't want to be here, it's a not right now, until they can get better bolstered residential places. So why it's important for us to know about your growth in certain parts of town with your residential households, and what's coming, because that helps kind of temper the retailers. Now, it's more than just grocery. It's, you know, it's your, think about your like I said, your Texas Roadhouse, those bigger sit-down style brands. But, you know, I'm making an effort to reach out to some more of those local players, if that makes sense, that you guys all love, that are not in Blue Springs, to see if there's an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other, Councilmember Edmondson?
I guess a couple of questions in that, we're a community right on an interstate. We just topped 60,000 population. We've got major roads coming through here. So what are we doing that's maybe hampering getting new people here, or new businesses, and what things are we doing well that maybe we could try to improve upon?
Well, you know, when that question is asked, I always reflect back to the community or to the municipality and say, what are some civic improvements that you're doing? You know, is there new industrial place coming to town? Is there new schools? Is there new, again, residential projects? What are things that are, these retailers are thinking like, well, I could put a brand here, but what else is there that's going to make someone want to live in Blue Springs? So some of the things that you're doing great, and there's just something, one is a geographical placement of Blue Springs. You're very tied into Kansas City. You have interstate access. You have a lot of flow through the community. Great traffic corridors. You have a gigantic power center that's very attractive, that brings a lot of synergy to the market. Now, we'll say this, Adams Dairy has brought in a lot of brands that you would not see in other communities the size of Blue Springs, just because of where it's placed at and the type of brands that are there. So co-tenancy is a huge thing in the community. But to your point, some things, like I said, you mentioned is, what I mentioned is, you know, what are things that you're doing on the civic engagement side of things? And the biggest things now for retailers and mainly developers are incentive packages. You know, one thing we always steered clear from was giving out the city's pocketbook, because we don't want to ever lead a retailer of saying, hey, there's plenty of money here from the municipality to get you in the community. But we're at a point in time now where, you know, business loans are 8.7% versus 3% pre-COVID, where it's hard for these brands to perform. There's countless brands that want to be here. They just financially can't do the deal until it's the right time, the right place for them to get into the market. But, you know, outside of it being, you know, incentive or cash dollar amount, some things like a speedy zoning. We had a retailer we're talking to now, it's going to be new to market to the state of Missouri, and we were heavily guiding you guys in that direction for them to be the first store in Missouri. And, you know, they want to know, you know, what are any public infrastructure improvements? Are there, what's the speed time, or what's the time it takes to get through planning and zoning? You know, they had, in some states they work in, it takes 24 months for them to get a planning permit done. So being as contiguous and being as business pro-business as possible is kind of what makes retailers, or kind of what engages them more to say, you know what, it's easier to work with this community here than it is this community, let's just do a deal here. But with that, they also want to know how your community is growing. You know, is there growth pattern? Is there a shrinkage in your community? And they also look at the data. There's either myself, retailers, they can't just look over what type of community you are. So when I talk about those mosaics or that tapestry segmentation, it's very important for them to kind of know, because their brand sells to that certain type of consumer. If you don't have that type of consumer, you're not going to come to your market.
Any other questions, Mr. Sam? I was gonna sort of the same question as Councilmember Edmondson. You mentioned grocery stores specifically, and I saw in your presentation here they mentioned you're looking for 55,000 residents within 3 miles. Is it dependent on other grocers in the area, or is as long as a different brand, does that matter?
Yes. Excuse me. The thing about, to your point, Mayor, the thing about grocery stores, especially post-COVID, is the competition. They're extremely competitive now, and they, unless it's within their same brand or umbrella of brands that they're in, think about like Kroger and all those different brands that they represent. But outside of that, yes, they don't want to compress. You're not going to see Price Chopper put a store a mile away from the other one, even though it's kind of close already here from their other locations. But they're strategically placing themselves in certain areas. With that, they're having to strengthen up their site criteria and their demographic requirements in order to understand, like, okay, we need this many people to make this projection in dollar amount. So also supply chain is a huge thing. You open another store, that's another supply chain that you have to open up, especially for a brand that's not already here. I'm talking with some brands out in St. Louis right now to try to get them to come out here, so they don't have a supply chain. That was one response we've gotten of many of supply chain issues. But it all depends on that demographic from that spot that they choose. So we could present sites all over the community, but at the end of the day, they're gonna be like, well, it's too close here, or this store does really good, or this QSR that we know that our shoppers go to isn't doing too well over here. What do you have down south? What do you have north? What do you have east? Or what do you have west of town?
So we had an experience where we approved a grocery store, but the supplier wouldn't supply it because they all, like Price Chopper, for example, was also a store that they supplied. So what thought do you put into attracting somebody with a different supplier? Or we hear Trader Joe's a lot. Is somebody like a Trader Joe's, is it more about population? Is it more about income level? What is the ideal thing that somebody like that would be looking for?
For like a Trader Joe's, it's going to be heavily income-based and heavily mosaic-based, meaning your type of consumer that's in the community. So, but that's not necessarily always true for them. It also depends on the projection of what they think a store could do in a market like Blue Springs. Do I think they're a great fit for the community? Yes, I think they're a great fit through the community. You got brands here that they co-tenant with really well in the community. So I think they're able to do it. Now, would they go freestanding in the community 10 times? No, they probably won't. They would need new construction, which is a big hesitant right now for a lot of brands, just how expensive it is to build brand new. But I can see a brand like Trader Joe's to come to a market like this.
And you may say you answered this question, but similar. So you say you've been talking to 34 retailers, restaurants, clothing. What are you being told about Blue Springs? What is the feedback that you're getting?
Yeah. So Blue Springs, they look at Blue Springs as being a very unique market. Brands are starting to compress outward of infield sites that you usually see in a very in-depth or deep within Kansas City. They're starting to push out more suburban, just kind of that's how the country is growing all over, is suburbanites. It's part of the tapestry segmentation. And that's kind of their core consumer. So the highlighting that from what we're getting, the highlights for what we're getting from them is great household incomes. You're getting, great traffic flow through your communities. There's brands co-tenancy that's already here. But a lot of these brands don't want to trailblaze and be the first in a new retail node or be the first to market. And that's kind of part of what we do with bigger brands or new to market brands, is try to get them here, and by telling the story through data, but as well trying to tell them about the community as well. So again, new residential projects, new highway improvement projects, interstate roadway projects, neighborhood projects, new community centers, whatever. We try to dress it up as much as we possibly can to sell it to the retailers. So, and we want to know why they don't want to come, so we can deliver that information.
So do you feel like in the discussions you're having, you have that information to sell Blue Springs? You have, I believe we have an incentive policy.
Yep.
Has that been a factor? Have you heard talks of what our incentive policy looks like compared to other communities?
So let's just give you an example. Let's go back to ICSC Las Vegas. The biggest thing on the municipal side of that show, as well as the developer side of the show, was public-private partnerships. These brands are knowing that they don't have to work with cities in order to get themselves placed here. No matter how good your community is, it could be a home run community, they still can't come, just they financially can't do it. So, but just kind of blending questions here is, again, being as pro-business and being as, open to the process of them getting here from the municipal side versus we're telling the story from our end to get the brands here. But again, being pro-business, having a CID, a TIF, whatever, that's, could be helpful for them to get here. And just in general, grocery stores are not doing freestanding locations much anymore as they were doing it with a full shopping center development. just helps the density of the project overall and the cost. The more volume you can have, the more projections you can get to do a bigger performer and do a bigger project at the end of the day.
So I'm hearing you say if we want to attract those type of businesses, we need to be looking at additional projects that would include more than one retailer.
Yes, yes. Co-tenancy is huge now with retailers. They want those brands there because they can get projections off of those brands. There's a tool that retailers use that we use as well to understand the projections in the sales tax. Well, not sales tax, but the average unit volume per location, know if it's doing good. For example, I had a retailer that said, hey, this part of town, the fast food users aren't doing too well down here, so I don't want to be here. You know, I want to be somewhere where it's stronger the shopper, the stronger the chance of the shopper is going to be at their brand. So it also depends, like for example, where Tim Hortons is going into the Burger King. You know, they decide like, well, this is probably not the best site for us or the best part of the community we should go to, but we're going to take a chance and go on that Burger King site just because they're looking at probably other variables outside the community like traffic counts. They're looking at the interstate access from there. They're looking at the other brands around Tim Hortons as well. I mean, around where the Burger King is.
They're the same parent company as well, though.
Yeah,
correct?
they're the
So-
same. Yeah, RBI is still the
That's an easy lift.
easy lift. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Ms. Snell? Councilmember Colvin.
Yeah, with infill,
Hmm.
do companies, do they look at infill or do they look for starting fresh, basically, I guess the way to put it? We used to hear so much about shovel ready and everything had to be shovel ready to get people to come. But, you know, if you have a vacant or a company's moving out, now you have a vacant facility, is that better?
Yes, second gen space is where everyone is wanting to lean to now.
So that really is the thing we need to really look at marketing.
It is. You know, I was asking earlier about a certain retailer how they're doing. You know, is because I'm thinking ahead like, okay, I have this retailer that's 35,000 square feet. I wonder what this store is doing that matches that square footage to see if they could be going out of business or they want to relocate, whatever. You know, I'm constantly thinking about that. It's in the back of my head. But second gen space is optimal. But at the end of the day, whatever financially makes sense now, like retail used to be like the wild west. Tenant brokers and landlord brokers used to go out here and sling guns with each other to do these deals because pre-COVID, real estate wasn't crazy expensive as it was, and interest rates and business loans weren't so crazy to get. You know, it was easier to do deals for new construction. Second gen space now, we're a brand that pays $4.50 for 30,000 square feet. They can probably get away with it versus them having to pay $30 a square foot for new construction, which they can't afford.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mallon, did you have more to add?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Seth.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, I have visitors. I have 2 speaker appearance forms. First, I have Michelle Floyd wants to talk about animal control. You have 3 minutes to tell us what you're thinking.
I was just kind of wanting to know what's the plan going forward, because it's a mess right now. And so I didn't know if the city had some type of idea. A city of our size really needs a shelter, and we don't need a contractor running the shelter. But we do need a shelter. We need something done with our animal control. I actually had to pick up 7 dogs over the weekend, and I held them at my house because nobody would come out. So I know they've got until October 1st, but you know, they've got 40-some dogs they're talking about euthanizing that are supposedly city dogs, but they just brought in 79 breeder releases on Thursday. So, you know, what are we gonna do about our animals here in Blue Springs? We've got, you know, if they go euthanizing 40 dogs, we're gonna have some problems. And I know that they've got the ability to do whatever they want because they have the contract, but this is not working in a city of this size. We need to fix it. So I just kind of wanted to know what's the future plans for our animals.
So as you mentioned, we have until October 1st until the city takes the contract back over. We have tasked staff with working on that transition with Opportunities. And once they have those details available, we'll release those to the public. So that's where we are right now.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
Staff, Chief, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think you said it quite well. We're working on that plan. We're hiring right now, and we're working to have animal control back in-house and get that under control.
Thank you so much. I also have a speaker appearance form for Debbie Steiner. Ms. Steiner, come right up. You got 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Deborah Steiner, and I live at 410 Southwest 10th Street in Blue Springs. I'm here again on the same matter I was here last month on the holiday of June 19th. I was scheduled a phone hearing with the city inspector. The June 19th was a federal holiday. The city offices were closed on June 19th. I was here at the city meeting and you announced that all the offices would be closed. I received a letter from the city inspector on June 24th that the meeting was held at 9 a.m. on June 19th. How is this? My meeting was supposed to be on the phone. How was the meeting held? Since the office was closed, why didn't I get a notice to have a different time? Is this inspector paid overtime? Is somebody bribing her? Exactly what is the city doing? And since I have time left, I have another comment about license plates. We have a renter, there's a renter house at 408 Southwest 10th Street. It is a rental house, they're on Section 8. They have a brand new little Volkswagen Bug, it's green. They have a temp tag. It's been on for over a year. They keep on making the temp tag smaller and smaller, so now it's about 1/4 of an inch. And they drive around with it. I understand if a car is broken or something, but this is a brand new vehicle. And something should be done about a vehicle that is brand new for over a year. Thank you.
Ms. Steiner, can I just ask, do I understand correctly, you had something scheduled with the city for the
Yeah,
19th?
on here's my letter, June 19th.
Okay.
And she said, she wrote me a letter and she said that there was a public hearing held on June 19th.
Was it something with community development or the police department or what?
Community development.
Okay.
With codes.
If you have something, Mr. Mound, you can answer now. If not, we'll find out. I don't know the answer to your question right away. But
I don't have all the details. I just know that our codes officer apologize for the confusion. The date may have mistyped. That it was just a admin hearing date. It was not a summons or a court date. But it was a mistake on one of our codes inspectors' part.
if you can get with Mr. Mallon afterward, we'll figure out what that
Okay.
was and if it needs to be rescheduled or what action needs to be taken.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, appreciate that. I don't have any other speaker appearance form. Next, are there any council members that have any comments this evening? I see Councilmember Culpepper's wearing a Girls on Fire shirt, so.
Girls on Fire is this week. This is our second session, and we've got close to 60 girls this time around, and it's a great group. So if anybody's interested out there in the Girls on Fire, I would suggest you go on the city website and look towards next year. We are full booked up for this year.
Councilmember Erickson, do you have something?
Oh, I do. I want to recognize the passing of a dear friend of mine in our community, Dr. Robert Herzog. Most of us knew him as Bud Herzog. Bud was a veterinarian in Lee Summit. He was instrumental in my mentoring, if you will, for however good that may or may not be. But the reason I bring it up too is Bud was a zoo veterinarian at the Kansas City Zoo for many years. He was on the Jackson County legislature for many years and incredibly instrumental in the Lee Summit School District. Affected the lives of thousands of people. I'll miss him. I know there were other people that had sadnesses and that goes on, but this was special to me, and thank you, Bud, for being who you were.
Yeah, I knew Dr. Herzog as well. We talked about it before the meeting, and he was a great guy. He, largely a Lee Summit, big community leader down there, but it impacted us up here as well. Was on the school board. They even named the stadium after him. So I was trying to think of the best story I ever heard of what animal, because he was a large animal veterinarian, And so he had some pretty interesting stories on the animals he got to treat at the zoo. So he was a great guy. Well, we're going to miss him. Any other Councilmember Fowler?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm going to highlight and thank staff on consent agenda item 3B, but I guess let me preface that with saying, hey, thanks for almost 2 months of operation of the new water park, safety and entertainment. Our citizens love it. Great work. I can't imagine all the details that go into preparing for that and getting it done. And so with that, thanks. And I appreciate staff bringing forward this 3B for customer service training. We as a council, we get interact with the public too, and I can tell you, if you're not getting better at customer service, then you're getting behind. And it's great to see you guys ask for that, and I'm happy to see it happen. So we can always benefit by better customer service.
May I say one more thing? I have, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that as well, Councilmember Fowler, but we have family in from California, and the comments and the compliments from the family and everybody else, how well the Aquatic Center has served and the customer service, I don't know that they could improve it, but we'll try.
Yep.
Well, I will thank Councilmember Fowler and Councilman Erickson for teeing up my next thing here. I have a proclamation because this week on July 19th is National Recreation and Park Association Day. Park and Recreation Professionals Day, I guess. That's recognized by the National Recreation and Park Association. And the proclamation says, whereas Park and Recreation Professionals Day recognizes the importance and the benefits of services that enrich the lives of Blue Springs citizens and help make our community a desirable place to live, work, and visit. And whereas in May 2024 marked the grand opening of the brand new state-of-the-art Blue Surf Bay Water Park here in Blue Springs, complete with wave, zero depth entry, indoor pools, lazy river, ninja cross course, surf simulator, slide tower, and the world's longest stand-up slide. All of those things in that paragraph, Councilmember Edmondson has done at least twice, I believe. And is getting pretty good at the stand-up slide, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think I need some more practice. Also, whereas the Parks and Recreation Department increases the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, tourism, attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas the skilled work of park and recreation professionals strengthens community cohesion and resiliency, connects people with nature and each other, and provides and promotes opportunities for healthful living. Now, therefore, Chris Levisay, Mayor of Blue Springs, and the Blue Springs City Council do hereby proclaim July 19th as Park and Recreation Professionals Day. Congratulations to all our parks employees, and I see Mr. Parks Director back there. Thank you for all your hard work and for your team. And I called you out at that last meeting. You showed me up, and we do have a day for you, so we're ready to go. I think, and I believe you have an event planned on Friday to help recognize the staff as well, so give them our thanks officially from the council. That's all I have for mayor's comments. Is there anything else before we go to the executive session? If not, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Mayor, a motion is in order for council to go into closed session pursuant to section 610.021, subparagraphs 1, 2, and 9, revised statutes of Missouri for the purpose of privileged communications between a governmental body or its representative and legal counsel, including litigation, real estate, and employee groups, that any minutes, documents, and other records discussed or taken during the closed session remain closed, and that this body stand adjourned at the completion of such session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper. Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
We'll go into executive session.